There's another document. That's what the lawyer said. And I swear to God, the entire room stopped breathing.
The air went heavy, like someone had just dropped a truth nobody was ready for. My aunt's smile froze mid-laugh. My cousin's fingers tightened around the armrest, so hard I could actually hear it creak. Even my father, who hadn't looked at me once since I walked in, finally lifted his head. The lawyer adjusted his glasses, staring down at the papers like something didn't make sense. I wasn't aware this existed until this morning. And that's when I knew something was wrong. Or maybe something was finally right. My name is Alina. I'm 26. And 3 days ago, I buried the only person in my family who ever actually loved me, my grandfather. Everyone else in that room, they were just people I happened to share blood with. And if you had seen the way they acted at his funeral, you'd understand exactly what I mean. The funeral itself felt fake. You know that feeling when something looks right on the surface, but underneath, it's just off? That was it. Black clothes, slow music, people whispering like they cared. But if you looked a little closer, you'd see it. My aunt checking her phone every 5 minutes. My cousin whispering to her husband and trying not to smile. My father standing stiff, not near the coffin, not near me, just there, like this was some kind of obligation he couldn't skip. And me, I was the only one actually crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears I couldn't stop. Because my grandfather wasn't just family, he was everything. I grew up in that house. Not because my parents couldn't afford to raise me, but because they didn't want to. My mom left when I was 6. Just gone. No calls. No explanation. Nothing. And my dad, he didn't fight for me. Didn't even try. He just dropped me off at my grandfather's place like I was luggage he didn't want to carry anymore. I still remember that day. I was standing on the porch, holding a small pink backpack, watching his car disappear down the street. No goodbye. No, I'll come back. Just gone. And then my grandfather opened the door. He looked at me, really looked at me, and said something I've never forgotten. "You're not staying here because they left you," he said. "You're staying here because you're mine." From that moment on, he raised me like I was his second chance at life. School runs, late night talks, teaching me how to cook, how to fix things, how to stand up for myself. He never missed a single event, not one. Meanwhile, the rest of the family, they barely showed up. Birthdays, maybe. Holidays, sometimes. But even then, it always felt forced. Like they were only there because they had to be. And honestly, they didn't even try to hide it. My Aunt Nadia was the worst. She had this way of smiling at you while saying the most disrespectful things possible. "Oh, Alina, you're still living here?" she'd say, looking around the house like it disappointed her. "You should think about your future. You can't depend on an old man forever." I was 16 the first time she said that. 16. And my grandfather? He didn't yell, didn't argue. He just calmly stood up, walked over to the door, and opened it. "You're right," he said. "She shouldn't depend on people who don't care about her." And then he looked straight at her. "So you can leave." After that, she didn't come around much. Not until he got sick. It started small. A cough, a little fatigue. Nothing serious. At least that's what we thought. But then it got worse. Doctor visits turned into hospital stays. Short stays turned into longer ones. And suddenly, the man who used to wake up before sunrise every day couldn't even get out of bed without help. That's when they came back. All of them, like flies to something they suddenly realized had value. My aunt started visiting every other day, bringing fruits, sitting by his bedside, talking in that fake soft voice like she actually cared. My cousin, Sarah, showed up with flowers and a notebook, asking questions about family history. Even my father started coming around more, standing in the corner, quiet, watching everything, like he was waiting for something. At first, I wanted to believe it. I really did. I thought maybe they changed. Maybe seeing him like that made them realize what mattered. But then I started noticing things. Small things, like how my aunt would lower her voice whenever I walked into the room, or how my cousin would suddenly stop writing in her notebook when I got close, or how my father would avoid eye contact whenever I asked him simple questions. And the worst part? The arguments. Not loud ones, whispered ones, behind closed doors. But I heard enough words like documents, signatures, transfer. One night, I couldn't sleep. So I went to the kitchen to get some water, and that's when I heard them. In the living room, my aunt, my cousin, and my father. You need to convince him, my aunt was saying. He trusts you more than anyone. I'm not doing that, my father replied. You think I don't know what this is about? Oh, please, she snapped. Don't act like you don't benefit from this too. There was a pause. Then my cousin spoke. If we don't handle this now, it's all going to her. Silence. Heavy silence. And then my aunt again. After everything we've done, that girl gets everything. I stood there, frozen, heart pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. They were talking about me, about him, about everything. I didn't confront them. I couldn't, because in that moment, something inside me just broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a final piece of trust falling apart. The next morning, I told my grandfather, not everything, just enough. I didn't want to stress him, didn't want to make things worse. But he listened, really listened, and when I finished, he just nodded, slowly, like he already knew. They think I don't see it, he said. His voice was weaker than before, but his eyes, still sharp, still aware. I may be old, Alina, but I'm not blind. I sat next to him, holding his hand. What are you going to do? I asked. He smiled, that same calm, steady smile he always had. I already did it. I didn't understand what he meant, and before I could ask, he changed the subject, started talking about random things, old memories, stories, jokes, like nothing was wrong, like everything was normal. That was the last real conversation we had. 2 days later, he was gone, and now I was sitting in that cold, quiet room, surrounded by people who didn't deserve to be there, listening to a lawyer read a will that didn't make sense. To my daughter Nadia, he read, I leave the property on Lakeview Drive. My aunt tried to hide her smile. Failed. To my son, he continued. My father sat up straighter. I leave the downtown commercial assets. A small nod, almost satisfied. To my granddaughter, Sarah, my cousin leaned forward. I leave my investment portfolio. She actually whispered, finally. And then, nothing. No more names. No more pages. Just silence. I waited. Maybe there was another page. Maybe he just hadn't reached it yet. But no, that was it. I felt my chest tighten. My hands went cold. This didn't make sense. Not after everything. Not after what he said. My aunt let out a soft laugh. Well, she said, looking straight at me, I guess some people just don't matter as much as they think. My cousin smirked. My father still didn't look at me. I wanted to say something. Anything. But the words just wouldn't come out. Because deep down, a part of me was asking the same question. Why? And that's when the lawyer spoke again. That's strange. His voice cut through the room like a crack in glass. Everyone turned. This doesn't match, he said slowly. I was given a different version of this will. The room shifted. You could feel it. Like something invisible had just changed direction. My aunt's smile faded. What do you mean? She asked, a little too quickly. The lawyer frowned, flipping through the pages again. There were additional clauses, he said. Specific instructions, conditions. My cousin sat up straighter. What kind of conditions? He didn't answer right away. Just reached into his briefcase. Slowly, carefully, and then he pulled out a sealed envelope. I wasn't aware this existed until this morning, he said, but it was delivered with strict instructions to be opened only after the primary will was read. No one moved. No one spoke. And then he looked up, straight at me. There's another document. And suddenly, everything I thought I lost didn't feel lost anymore. The moment the lawyer placed that sealed envelope on the table, the entire room changed. Not loudly, not visibly at first, but you could feel it, like pressure dropping before a storm hits. Nobody spoke. Not my aunt, not my cousin, Not even my father. All of them just stared at that envelope like it was a live wire. My aunt finally broke the silence. "This is ridiculous," she said quickly. Too quickly. He already read the will. "That's it. There's nothing else." The lawyer didn't look at her. "I'm afraid that's not how legal documentation works," he replied calmly. Then he turned the envelope slightly. And that's when I saw it. My grandfather's handwriting. Even after his death, even on paper, it felt like him. Careful, deliberate, controlled. No unnecessary words. No hesitation. Just intent. The lawyer continued. This document was stored separately, with strict instructions. It can only be opened after the primary was fully read and all named beneficiaries are present. He paused, then added something that made my stomach tighten. And there's a recorded statement attached. A recording. My cousin leaned forward immediately. What kind of recording? The lawyer adjusted his glasses again. From your grandfather. That sentence hit differently. Because suddenly this wasn't just paperwork anymore. This was him. Still speaking. Still watching. Even after everything. My aunt let out a nervous laugh. This is insane. He was sick. He probably wasn't thinking clearly. He was thinking very clearly. The lawyer interrupted. The way he said it wasn't aggressive. It was final. And that shut her up instantly. I stayed silent. Because something inside me already knew. My grandfather didn't miss things. He noticed everything. Even things people thought were hidden. Especially things people thought were hidden. The lawyer carefully broke the seal. The sound of paper tearing in that quiet room felt too loud, like it didn't belong there. He pulled out a single folder, then another smaller envelope inside it, and finally a USB drive. My cousin blinked. What is that supposed to be? The lawyer didn't answer. Instead, he stood up and walked toward the screen at the front of the room. A portable display was already there, probably set up for formal reading. He plugged it in. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Just silence. Then the screen lit up, and my grandfather appeared. The room went still. Even my breathing felt loud. He was sitting in his chair, the one by the window at home, wearing that old gray sweater he refused to throw away. His face looked tired, but his eyes? Sharp, focused, alive in a way that made my throat tighten instantly. "If you're watching this," he said slowly, "then I am gone. No emotion, no theatrics, just truth." My aunt shifted uncomfortably in her seat. My cousin whispered, "This is creepy," but nobody left. Nobody even looked away. "I kept this separate for a reason," he continued, "because I knew what would happen when I died." A pause. Then his gaze shifted slightly, like he was speaking directly to them. Greed has a pattern. It never hides for long. I saw my father's jaw tighten, just slightly, but it was there. The video continued. "I gave you all a chance to be decent people. Some of you ignored it. Some of you pretended." His expression changed slightly. Not angry, disappointed. That hurt more. My aunt scoffed under her breath, but she didn't interrupt anymore. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "Before my passing, I created a second will." The room reacted instantly. My cousin straightened. My aunt froze. My father finally turned his head slightly toward the screen. "This will override the first," he said calmly. "But it is not based on blood." A pause. "It is based on behavior." The lawyer glanced up briefly, confirming what we were hearing. Then back to the screen. My grandfather continued. "I watched how each of you behaved when I became sick." And suddenly the tone shifted. Not emotional. Observational. Like he had been studying them. Like data. "To Nadia," he said, and my aunt stiffened instantly. "I saw your visits increase only after you learned about my assets." Her face twitched. Just slightly. "But I saw it. To my son," he continued. My father didn't move. But I noticed his hands tighten. "I saw you speak more about my condition in financial terms than in human terms." Silence dropped harder. "To Sarah," he said next. My cousin swallowed. "I saw you taking notes that were not about my health, but about my holdings." That one hit her directly. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. No words came out. And then he looked directly at the camera. at all of us, together, and to Alina. My breath caught, because this was the first time he paused. Just slightly. Not long, but enough. You did not need to prove anything. His voice softened, just a little. But I needed to protect what I built from what I saw forming. My chest tightened. I didn't understand yet, but I felt it. Something was shifting. The lawyer paused the video. Before we proceed further, he said carefully, there are legal conditions attached to the second will. My aunt suddenly spoke again. This is ridiculous. You can't just erase a will because of some emotional video. The lawyer looked at her, and for the first time, there was something colder in his expression. It's not emotional, he said. It's legally binding with verified evidence. That shut her down again. He continued, this second will is conditional. My cousin frowned. Conditional on what? The lawyer looked down at the document, then said the words slowly. Honesty, conduct, and documented intent. There was a pause, a heavy one. Then he added, all inheritance can be reduced or revoked if any beneficiary is proven to have acted in bad faith toward the deceased during his final months. My aunt's face changed instantly. Not confusion, not surprise, fear. That's impossible, she snapped. How would he even prove that? The lawyer didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened the folder and slid out a stack of printed documents. Phone transcripts, hospital visitor logs, audio timestamps, bank activity summaries. My cousin leaned forward. What is all that? The lawyer didn't look up. Evidence. And then he placed the first sheet on the table. My aunt's name was highlighted at the top. Unauthorized attempts to access financial records during hospitalization period. My stomach dropped slightly. My cousin shifted in her seat. My father's face stayed unreadable. But I noticed something. He wasn't surprised. The lawyer continued. There are also recorded conversations attached. My aunt's voice went higher. This is an invasion of privacy. No, the lawyer said calmly. It's proof of intent. And then he looked up again. This was all collected legally. Your grandfather authorized surveillance of his own accounts and property during his illness. That sentence hung in the air. Heavy. Final. My grandfather had been watching, even when they thought he wasn't aware. Even when they thought he was too weak to notice. He had been recording everything. My cousin suddenly spoke again. So what? He just decided to punish us from beyond the grave? The lawyer shook his head. No, he turned a page. Your grandfather didn't design this to punish anyone. A pause. He designed it to filter. That word changed the tone completely. Filter. Like this was a revenge. It was selection. My aunt suddenly stood up. This is insane. I want this stop right now. But the lawyer didn't even react. Instead, he said something that made her freeze mid-step. You can leave if you want. A pause. But the process will continue without you, and your absence will be recorded as noncompliance. She stopped, slowly sat back down. Nobody was in control anymore. Not her. Not anyone. And then the lawyer said something worse. There's also a final recorded message that has not been played yet. My cousin whispered, What now? The lawyer looked at the screen again and said, Your grandfather requested this be shown only if all beneficiaries were physically present and aware of the second will. He pressed play, and my grandfather appeared again. But this time, he wasn't calm. Not fully. There was something sharper in his eyes now. He leaned forward slightly and said, If you are watching this, then you have already failed part of the test. Silence. And now, he continued, you will learn what failure costs. The screen flickered slightly, and the lawyer's hand stopped moving, because even he didn't know what came next. The screen flickered once. Then the room went completely still. Not the quiet kind of stillness where people are listening. The kind where everyone realizes they've lost control of the situation. My grandfather's face filled the screen again. But this time, something felt different. He wasn't just speaking. He was delivering judgment. If you are still here, he said slowly, then you chose greed over dignity. My aunt shifted in her seat. My cousin crossed her arms tightly. My father stared at the floor like it had answers. And that means, he continued, You will hear everything you tried to bury. The lawyer didn't move. Nobody did. Even breathing felt like a mistake in that moment. Then the recording changed. A folder opened on screen. A list appeared. Names, dates, evidence. My cousin whispered, "What is this?" The lawyer answered without looking at her. The full audit. And then the first clip played. My aunt's voice. Clear, loud, panicked. "We need to make sure he signs before he gets worse. After that, it won't matter." My entire body went cold, because that wasn't taken out of context. That was intent. The room erupted instantly. "That's edited," my aunt shouted, but nobody responded, because the next clip played immediately.
My cousin. I already drafted the transfer documents. We just need his approval while he's still mentally stable. Her face went pale the moment she heard it. She shook her head rapidly. No, that's not. But the lawyer raised his hand. Silence. And she stopped. Then came my father's voice. And this one was quieter, more controlled, but worse. "If we wait too long, everything will go to her." A pause. And I'm not letting that happen. That's when I felt it. Not shock. Not confusion. Just something breaking. Because hearing it out loud made it real in a way whispers never could. My grandfather's voice returned over the recording. "Every word you said, every step you took, I documented." A pause. And I waited. The screen switched again. This time showing legal documents, verified timestamps, security footage, hospital visitor logs, even financial access attempts. The lawyer finally spoke. "Your grandfather authorized independent monitoring of all estate-related activity during his illness." He looked up. "Nothing here is alleged. It is all verified." My aunt suddenly stood again. "This is illegal. You can't record family like this." The lawyer's tone didn't change. He didn't record family. A pause. He recorded threats. That word hit harder than anything else. Threats. Not relatives. Not heirs. Threats. My cousin grabbed her phone under the table. I saw it. The lawyer saw it too. He didn't stop her. He just said one thing. "Everything is already backed up." Her hand froze. Then the final part of the recording began. My grandfather leaned closer to the camera. His voice softened slightly. Not in weakness. In finality. "I did not build what I have for it to be destroyed by greed." A pause. "So, I built a test instead." The screen shifted again. A new document appeared. The second will. The lawyer stood slowly. "This is the legally binding second will," he said. "And its conditions are now active." My aunt leaned forward. "What conditions?" The lawyer read directly. "To inherit anything, each beneficiary must demonstrate ethical conduct toward the deceased's legacy, assets, and named dependents." A pause. "And any proven manipulation attempt results in immediate disqualification." My cousin whispered, "This is insane," but nobody disagreed anymore, because we had already seen the proof. The lawyer continued reading. "Nadia, disqualified." My aunt's head snapped up. "What? That's not..." "Attempted financial manipulation during medical incapacity period." The lawyer continued calmly. She froze. "Sarah, disqualified." My cousin stood up immediately. "Wait, no, you can't just..." "Documented intent to influence asset distribution under false pretenses." Silence dropped again. My father didn't even ask. He already knew. But the lawyer said it anyway. "Ali, pending review." My father looked up sharply. "For the first time." The lawyer continued. "Due to partial compliance and non-direct manipulation evidence." A pause. But flagged for passive complicity. That hit differently. Because even silence was now evidence. Then the lawyer turned toward me. The room shifted. All attention suddenly snapped in my direction. I didn't move. I couldn't. The lawyer read the final line. "Alina, sole conditional beneficiary." A pause. "In full trust allocation, pending final confirmation." My aunt let out a sharp laugh. "This is ridiculous." "She didn't do anything." The lawyer turned slightly. "She didn't attempt to exploit him." Silence. That is what he valued most. The room went dead again. Then the lawyer pressed the final file. A short audio clip. My grandfather's voice. One last time. Alina, a pause. If you are hearing this, I trust you did not become like them. My throat tightened instantly. I left everything to you because you never asked for it. A pause. You only gave. My hands started shaking. Not from fear. From realization. Then came the final sentence. And because of that, you are the only one who never failed the test. Silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Then the lawyer closed the folder. This concludes the reading. A pause. But enforcement of asset transfer begins immediately. That's when everything collapsed. My aunt stood up screaming, "This is fraud. I will contest this." My cousin grabbed her phone, already dialing someone. My father just sat there, silent, like the fight had already left him. But the lawyer didn't react. He simply said, "You are free to contest it." A pause. But everything has already been legally executed. And then he looked at me. "For you," he said calmly, "your grandfather left a final instruction." He handed me a sealed letter, smaller than the others. No legal stamp, just handwriting. His handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. One line. Just one. "They will finally see your worth when I am no longer there to speak for it." I couldn't breathe for a second. Not because I was overwhelmed, but because for the first time, I understood. It was never about money. It was never about inheritance. It was about truth. And in that room full of greed, noise, and denial, the only thing louder than all of them was his silence finally speaking.